some of the, you know, how much of, how would you tell a young artist, novelist, screenplay writer, actor, whatever, how do you tell them to survive the rejection in this industry, in the artistic industry? What would be your advice to them?
It was a long time before I could explain it, you know. I just always wanted to write, you know. But then I heard, I'm dropping a lot of names, but I heard Louis C.K. talk about how he sucked in the beginning of his career. And yes, he said, I sucked, I really sucked, but I was in that room.
Yeah.
That was good enough. I wanted to be in that room, and that clicked for me. That's what it was. I wanted to work with words. I wanted to, when Rich Ramirez pushed me into acting, I thought I was gonna have a heart attack, seize up, and die. And when that didn't happen, it was a completely different kind of rush than the book stuff, and just wanting to. And here he is, just wanting to get his part. Thank you. Just wanting to be connected with that pushed me to continue, and that's what I talked about with. I do teach high school. Alexa LaCourte, who was in Clandestine, she comes from my school, and when I talk to, she never needed advice, but when I talk to others, it's just go ahead and do it and trust the process. You know, and that's what I would tell writers. That's what I would tell artists. Just keep doing it. You know, I'm working on a writing book that would be called "Let It Suck," because really that's the thing. The process is what's important. Get it done, then you can always polish it. Do your rough performance. Get it up on its feet, right? How many times have you gotten scenes up on, up on there and said, okay, it's running long, we have to do this. That's the process. That's when you're living, breathing the art, and that's the difference between the people who are doing it and will get somewhere, wherever they're going to be. I don't know if I'll ever hit a bestseller list, but I look at these books and I am thrilled that they exist. I
think what you're kind of saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know one of my teachers once asked me, what do you hate about acting? And I was like, I really don't hate anything. I mean, I wouldn't say I love not getting hurt, but I don't care in the end. Because this is one thing we've all discussed, is that we simply have to do it. I mean, if we completely take a day job, a teaching gig, and, that's it. Life
let me take that and push you a little further, because I've seen you. I've been lucky enough to see all of you developing your performances, and I have seen you at a point where I would call it the birthing process. Where you're in it, and it may not be glorious at that moment, right? It's pain in the ass, or we're working too hard, or we're doing like 12 takes, or how many times did we do marathon nights that were like, it's 4 or 5 in the morning and we're still doing takes. But none of us said, fuck this, we're out. Oops, excuse me. None of us said we're out, right? None of us said, I can't take this anymore. That's the thing. If you can take your worst day, right? Like every book, there's a moment when I'm walking around, talking to my wife, and God bless, here's another advice for young writers or young creatives: find someone willing to put up with you. But I'll come out and say, listen, I suck, it sucks, it's terrible. And if you can get to that point and still go back, like Louis C.K. sucked and he came back to that room the next night. You were doing the early versions of Clandestine, and you went back and wrote it again and wrote it back. That's the point. Every young artist, if you can get to that worst moment and take the next step, you're on your way. Get through the doubt, get through the hate, right? And we all hate our performance or hate our work at a certain point. If you hate it, but then you keep going, hate's just a different form of passion.
Yeah.
Well, that's where the real growth, I think, happens in those times, and you don't even realize you're growing, but you're just doing it, and so you know, it evolves, and you just kind of grow in
Yes.
that whole
Yeah.
process. So
Yes, you got to let it grow. You're right. Yes, definitely.
I think that's great. I mean, you know, I think one of the most challenging things is when you are. I think it's for creative people in general, but it's also, you know, for writers, in that you say, okay, I want to do something about such and such, and then you have all of these ideas in the air, and you have to start to bring it all together and try to make some type of form out of it. And I think that, you know, that can be that's definitely a, you know, like you said, you got to let it grow, and you have to be open to those adjustments and those changes, and, you know, letting things suck, as you said, and so on and so forth. So.
And
then the key, you got to stick with it and make it suck less, though. You know?
But I like that you are not afraid to keep learning and, you know, always be learning, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, I have a father-in-law who's in his 80s, and he's still working around the house and building this and doing that. And then I have a mom. She was less active, and now she's developing a lot of challenges that are heartbreaking, you know. And part of that is that fear, you know, that if, you know, a muscle either grows or you know, it dies, you know, it starts to wither, you know. So all of these things are a different way of letting your spirit grow, letting your mind grow, letting your heart grow. And I think we have to keep going. You have to keep growing, trying new things, being fascinated with all facets of what's out there. Because once you stop, then the world starts closing in on you, and you start withering. And I'm not ready for any of that.
I think you know, it's as you were talking, something popped in my head. I think some people are afraid to maybe push through and make a dream a reality, because once it's out there in the public world, you get to deal with a multitude of different opinions, and sometimes those opinions are brutal.
Oh, yeah.
So what I think we've all experienced that to some extent, whether it was our writing or music or acting or directing or whatever. So what's your advice to a writer who wants to write something, but they're terrified when they put it up on Amazon, and now it's open to you know, all different types of people? It might even be someone who has like a personal vendetta against you for whatever the reason, and they're just going to eviscerate your work. So how do you, what's your recommendations to writers for that?
Well, there's so many different directions to go. But first of all, you have to know that you do your art for yourself first, and then you share it with the world. And once you share it with the world, well, then, you know, it's out there. You know, to drop another name, Billy Joel said that, you know, each one of those songs is kind of like a kid. You know, you let your kid out in the world, you worry about who it's going to run into and that kind of stuff. That's what's going to happen. So you have to be prepared to understand that they can say anything they want. If you know you've done the best you can, here's my litmus test. Can I learn something from what they're saying? You know, if they talk about a book and say, you know, this plot doesn't work because this, and I look at it and damn it, they're right. All right, then I've learned something. You know, there was a review. One of the reviews on City of Woe talks about how they expected something else. Well, I have no control over that, you know, and they were disappointed because it wasn't that other thing that they expected. So I was like, all right, and I read the rest of the review, and the rest of the review was really positive. So, you know, it sounded like they had a good time. What are you going to do, you know? Especially with social media. There are trolls out there. There are people out there that are just want to be the opposite of whatever you are. You know, you created something, basically, you know, not to be too corny, but you gave birth to it and you bring it out to the world, and they want to slap it down. Well, you can't take, you know, If they have nothing of value to say, then what they say has no value. You know, so if you take it personally, you're allowing them in your head. You know, it's not a situation where everybody's opinion is valid. You know, if again, the litmus test is, can you learn from them? Did they show you something you didn't already know?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I just hate it because I hate it. You know, I love Donald Mass. I think he's the greatest lit agent out there. He didn't get the City of Wolves pitch. You know, he saw two cops. He didn't see Virgil and Dante. You know, all right, that one didn't work out, but it doesn't mean he's wrong. It's just I can't learn anything from him. We're not connecting, and we move on. You know. Would I love for him to have seen that? Would I love him to say, okay, it needs a lot of work, but I'm going to take a chance? Of course. Did it end my world? No, I've got 3 of those right here. You know, look, I didn't stop. It's okay, and you don't have to stop either. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's true. It's a good point. I think the challenge is when you feel like the gatekeepers, so to speak, are never get what you're trying to convey out there to the world. So
yeah, but you know as well as I do that these days we don't need the gate anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's other ways to go about it. You know, look at what you've built so far. You know, to a point where those on the other side of the gate will start looking. You know, and then they'll open it for you. That's a whole different thing. You're just doing your work. And you guys are getting better at it, and I'm getting better at what I'm doing. And that didn't exist 10 years ago. That didn't exist. Kindle didn't exist. The indie market, you know, you look at Kevin Smith and those kind of guys, and Slacker and those kind of movies, it existed in a different way, not in the explosive way it exists now. You know, we're all just scratching the surface of how far we could go in the indie markets. You know, there's so much I still have to learn, and Feenix there are places it can go as well. The gates aren't falling down, but it's changing. You know, and what is possible is very different than what was possible when we first started. Same thing with the music too, right? It's a different world now.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking that actually I'm old enough to remember to see the transition from everything needing external support and external input and development to it eventually becoming projects that anyone can do themselves at home. And I think it really, as far as getting it out to the world, it started with music for whatever reason. It really did. And then I saw the self-publishing really kind of creep up after that in a way that made it more affordable to even just publish a book if you didn't want to get 1,000, you know. And then, of course, with movies being more complex and having more, just honestly, more memory that it takes to stream and save, that took a little bit of a longer process. But they're finally getting to the point where they can be self-released.
It's a fascinating time to be creative, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Imagine being a kid and being this into it. Imagine being a kid who's watching this interview and saying, these guys are saying, yes, I can. Yeah, you can. You know? Get out there.
Beat it, kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just don't go in front of us, kid.
Yeah, it's funny. For Thanksgiving, back... I'll put it up online at some point, but we had done a self-made video of the Sabotage video by the Beastie Boys.
Okay.
Oh my God.
And we took the it was me and a bunch of my high school buddies, and we were originally it was going to be a goof, and then we just got so into it that summer. I think it was the summer of '94, and I mean, what was supposed to be like a 3-minute little like homage to that video became an 8-minute long extravaganza where I literally took the song on a CD player and I would pause it in moments and then pick it up in the next moment and all this other stuff. Now it's so easy to do that. Back then it was like I literally had to like force technology to do what I wanted to do. And then me and then my friend John, who were kind of coming up with the ideas for it, we then had to go and rent time at the library and edit on what looked like a dinosaur of an editing machine. And it's kind of crazy. I mean, my friends are all talking about it, and it looks so horrible now.
Well, it's supposed to. It's supposed to,
But we shot it on video, and it looks horrendous. And but it's hysterical because it's just so bad and it's so over the top, and it just keeps on going and going and going. But the thing that's funny about it too is that I think back to now that was '94. 10 years later, 2004. Obviously, I can do math, and 3 or 4 years after that, we were now editing on digital stuff, and we were creating stories and filming, and Nick was making music for Lock Load Love, and we just you're typing things on a computer and you're editing on a computer, and it's just crazy. It's the growth of what's at people's disposal nowadays to create. As you said, it really is a pretty extraordinary time.
Well, we some of the teachers at school got together. The music department needed a little extra cash for some project they were doing, so we were doing a benefit, and we thought that if we put a teacher band together, it would sell a bunch of tickets. It helped, but we wound up writing our own songs. One of which was named White Manna after the legendary, hamburger stand there. So we did the show, and then somehow got invited to do the local July 4th concert. Still writing our own stuff at the at Hackensack, Fashini Park, and we just goofing around, kept going, and there was a recording studio in New Milford, and we went in there, and they had a demo price, right? So I think we did 8 or 10 songs, just zipped through them, did about 3 or 4 takes with them, and got the demo. And the guitarist, and this is right up Nick's alley, went home, opened up the demo, and kind of produced it a little more. That thing's on iTunes now under the band name Winter Is Coming, believe it or not. Yeah, it's just, and now he says if we were doing that now, it would be entirely in his basement. And that's just a couple of years ago. The amount of technology that is at this generation's and us as well is staggering. And that should be I think that should be encouraging to young artists. Do what you. I was watching the history of funk. We all have our little things, and they were talking about, nowadays it's hip hop and all that stuff, and they don't play instruments like they used to. And this guy says, yeah, that's because in the big cities where a lot of the funk bands came from, all the automotive companies left. And that was all their parents' jobs, and the schools cut all the music programs. So they didn't learn instruments, but that couldn't kill the creativity. They just found another way, And that's one of the great things about the indie movement is that we can find a way.
Yeah, and I think I've been thinking about who might be watching this video as we're all talking, and a guy that I did a show with earlier this year was quite a bit younger than me and younger than all of us, said, I forget how he put it, but basically his comment was he grew up always having an online presence.
Wow.
the time he was in, old enough in school to know what that meant. He always did. We did it. None of us did. We all remember, even if it was when we were really young, what it was like to not know what that was, or to know what it was and not care, or to sort of care but not have much of a presence. And now everybody does, and everybody to some degree does care too. And so I think the value that we're bringing to the younger viewers who grew up with this is showing what kind of effort and toil it takes, that it used to take in the technical end and in the getting it out into the world end, but that how no matter what the process is, it doesn't change the degree of passion and work that you do for the art itself. But please remember that we've all been handed a gift in the last few years of being able to share this with the entire world almost instantaneously.
Yeah. And we can learn some stuff from those kids. I had a couple of former high school students. One's an actress, model, and she's done a couple of things with MTV and a lot of stuff. And the other one is pure model, and I happened to see both of them on Instagram the other day. One has 150,000 followers. The other one has like 200, 300,000 followers. 200, 300,000, and she's been out of high school a year. It's a different world, brothers. And I find myself catching up a little bit on that stuff, but hey, whatever it takes.
Yeah, well, so I guess the biggest message that you can take away from all this, setting aside all the amazing details that Chris gave us and advice and things like that, is that the only thing really stopping you from getting anywhere artistically, whether you're a writer or some other type of artist, is you. That's it. And I have to say that in and of itself is worth the price of this wonderful two-part special that we put together for all of you for the end of 2015. And I'd like to thank you all again for tuning in to Feenix Films Presents DIY Filmmaking, and we will be starting up regular episodes again sometime early next year. Until then, happy holidays, and on behalf of David LaRosa, Janine Leno, Kate McGrath, and our special guest, Christopher Ryan, I am Nick DiMatteo. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.